Welcome to the 902 Podcast, the official podcast of the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm Captain John Vick, and I want to thank you for listening. This podcast will give you an inside look at LSO with topics and guests to discuss public safety issues impacting Lancaster County. Be sure to follow the 902 Podcast for highlights on news, cases, and the people working for you at LSO. You can also follow us across social media at LSO Nebraska on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Welcome to the 902 Podcast. We're in the studio on a snowy Wednesday. Ben?
Very snowy.
Sheriff, you made it in okay, though, but I think you parked inside.
I made it in, yes.
Okay. Have you been back out yet?
I have not.
Herolic was just out. He said that the snow was lightning. So not lightning like thunderstorm lightning, but
letting up a little bit.
Letting up a little bit, maybe.
Well, the concern is going to become with the wind blowing. I think is going to be with this wind, snow being very, very light.
Very fluffy.
It is very fluffy.
Very fluffy.
So hopefully everybody gets where they're going safely. We'll try and get this episode out pretty quick.
People need to realize that things in the city aren't like they are in the county and vice versa.
Yes.
With the wind and, the protection in the city with buildings and more ground warmth, and we don't have those things necessarily in the county.
Yep.
But you have tree belts that could cause some drifting.
Yeah.
So people just need to be aware of their surrounings and use some good common sense and slow down.
Well, it can change pretty quickly.
The plows don't get to those roads a lot.
Yep.
Until they're trying to work on the main ones to keep those clean, and it just takes a while.
Well, yeah, if it's drifting, there's not a lot of sense in plowing it if it's going to drift right shut. So they'll wait.
Yep. Certainly. Well, we have a new voice on the show. We're doing voice today, no video, Kelsey. Mm-hmm. But Kelsey Cruz is here. Kelsey's our new public information officer at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. And Kelsey, you've been behind the scenes on the show a few times, but this is your first time behind the microphone.
First time.
So welcome.
Yep.
We're glad you're here.
Thanks.
And you're going to be weighing in on strategic planning with us today, and that's what we're here to talk about. We've had a strategic plan at the Sheriff's Office for a number of years, but
just about 6 now.
Yeah, so we'll walk through kind of where we're at and where we've been on that. But before we do that, Kelsey, since you're first time on the show, we want people to get to know you a little bit more. And I know you've been on Facebook and some of our news briefings and things like that. But if people haven't met you yet, tell us a little bit about you. Where are you from, and how did you get into your degrees in broadcast journalism? I'll let you explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Lincoln. I'm a Lincolnite. From high school, I went to college at UNL, got a degree in broadcast journalism, specifically because I love sports, and I saw Erin Andrews on TV, and I thought, I want to be just like her. Nothing like her. She makes her job look very, very easy in terms of sports broadcasting. But when I was throughout school, you learn that there's a lot of different areas in journalism, whether that's broadcast news, public relations, advertising.
Right.
From college, I went to Channel 8 as a news editor for them. And after I was there for a little while, I went to a state agency, the Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, as their public information officer. And I was there for almost 11 years. And that gave me a lot of really good experience about journalism in public sector, communicating with the public, things like that. And from there, I found this job and applied and got it, and here I am.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
82 people applied for that position that she got. So, there was a lot of interest.
There was a lot of interest, and certainly something that's needed for us here. And we've been doing this on a part-time basis with some of us for quite a while, but we're glad to have somebody on the team full-time. So welcome. Was there anything about public safety and law enforcement in particular that kind of piqued your interest when you saw the job or heard about it?
I think what made this job look very appealing is, aside from the fact that this is the first PIO, so I can kind of, as I'm learning, I can kind of make the position what my idea is and grow what kind of, I've been saying what's been good, great for the office. And I think as a individual that's not been in law enforcement, you can kind of see what other agencies locally, state, and nationally are doing, and you can kind of figure out, wow, that's really cool, or, oh, I would do something different, and kind of generate what you think works and what don't. And it's been a lot of trial and error so far. Everyone says I'm drinking out of a fire hose. So
yes,
that's been true.
Well, you're having to learn your job, but then also really the job of our deputies, the job of our professional staff, to be able to tell their stories. You kind of have to know their stories first. So it's a lot to learn. But
yes.
So having a great boss wasn't part of your draw to come here. Okay. Oh, okay.
I wondered if that was coming. So I didn't even have to set that one up for you. You just hit it right out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's move into our strategic plan a little bit. Like you said, Ben, we've had one for a number of years, and it's something that we don't just hang on the wall. We don't just put it on our website. It's something that we try to live out. So once in a while, we have to take a look back and measure and see how we've done.
Yeah, it's kind of a living document, because as time goes, certain things change. And one thing may be a priority at one point in time, but all of a sudden something new comes up and you have to look at that. So, but you have to, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know how to get there. And so that's what that's really about. And having that. And another thing, what we try to do is get other individuals involved in it. So it's not just the command staff making this. We had deputies, we had professional staff in it, when we had people from outside agencies, law enforcement, and from the public be part of it, just so that you get all those aspects of, what are we trying to do as an agency and where are we going?
For sure.
If you want a challenging career where you can make a difference in your life, your family's life, and the lives of those in your community, come and join the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. To learn more or to apply, visit us online at www.joinlso.com.
So, Sheriff, what is a strategic plan, and why do you think that it's important for LSO to have one?
Well, just like Ben said, it's kind of a roadmap of where we're going, and it lets the public know, here's what our priorities are, here's what our goals are, here's what we're striving to achieve. Mm-hmm. So it's important for the folks to know that, and like Ben said, some of the goals that we have become obsolete and not relevant anymore. We'll make a change, or we'll delete that particular goal, but by and large, our basic tenets are treat people fairly and to do our job well.
Yeah.
And that really is the bottom line.
Well, it also shows people what we have gotten done.
Yes.
I think is another thing as you go along, because I think, people in the public and even our employees sometimes don't know exactly what's going on all over the place. And this is a good way to say, hey, here's one of our major goals, and we accomplished that. And I think people need to know that, because they don't always get to see it or be part of that process.
I've thought about it as kind of the rowing the boat type of analogy, is that we've got 114-ish people, 120. We've kind of ebbed and flowed depending on where we're at staffing-wise, but everybody's rowing the boat. But if we're all rowing the boat in different directions, we just kind of sit there in the water.
Or you just spin,
or you just go around in a circle. So hopefully, we're steering the ship in the right direction. We can get everybody rowing the same way and get some stuff done.
Yes.
But you want to talk a little bit about how our strategic plan was developed?
Sure. Like I said, we started this probably mid 2022, and we had, I bet, 6, 7, 8 meetings with all those people, and people would get assigned different parts of it. And we were lucky enough already.
We were way before that, weren't we?
Well, that on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, because
this iteration.
On this generation one, because we had a roadmap of how we wanted to go about do it. I think we were both part of the first one, and I think that one was a lot harder to develop because we were starting
from scratch.
It was.
Yeah.
And so this one, you had some ideas in doing that, and we'd go through and we have different sections that I think we were going to talk about, but people would get assigned different tasks, and we would go and, we would brainstorm it and kind of go out and work on that and, kind of listen to what everybody kind of says. And then, all the ideas came in, and then as a command staff, we sat down and had all that information and kind of finalized it from there. So that's, I guess, the real basic part of how that got developed and doing that. And I think a lot of it too is, the people on the committee would go out and talk to folks on what they thought was important.
If anybody that wants to read our strategic plan, it's on our website. If you go to public information, and you can find our strategic plan, it's on a link. The current one is, like Ben said, from 2022 and wrapping up here in 2025. So we'll be in the ballpark to do a new one here. But there's a welcome letter there where they can kind of read some of your thoughts. But a lot of this is based on the 9 Peelian principles. And you want to talk about that a little bit from Sir Robert Peel?
Well, Sir Robert Peel has sort of been called the father of modern policing. He was in charge of the London Metropolitan Police Department, and his name was Robert, and thus some of the Bobby moniker came from his first name, and that's why they call police officers in London Bobbies because of Sir Robert Peel. Anyway, the Peelian principles are as relevant today as they were in the early 1800s when he wrote them, and it's just it's amazing the foresight that he had. So we're supposed to reduce crime, prevent crime and disorder, public cooperation. Police are the public, and the public are the police, and that's just a profound statement. Mm-hmm. We certainly can't do our job without the public's assistance, and so we're heavily dependent upon the public to get things done. So, and we need the public's approval. So, and you'll see that a number of times in the Peelian principles, securing the willing cooperation of the public, it covers use of force. Prevention is better than response. And I like the best of his is the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. So the problem with that statement is it's very hard to quantify what's not happening.
Yeah.
We can quantify how we're dealing with crime and the arrests we're making and the cases we're clearing, but it's really difficult and impossible to quantify the crime that's not happening because we're doing our jobs well.
Yep.
So,
yep.
A lot of times you just have to look at statistics and see, are these crimes going down? Why? Is it because of our efforts, or is it because of some other reason? It's hard telling.
If people want to know more about the Peelian principles, they can read each of them on our strategic plan on our website. We also did a prior episode with a little bit deeper dive into the Peelian principles. If you go and look back at previous 902 podcast shows. But let's move on to our mission statement and our values. Talk a little bit about them, and why are they so important to us, Ben?
Well, that was one of the things we did on the initial one is we came down and really worked on that, because this is what everybody is working towards.
Yeah.
This is what, as an agency, we're trying to do. And trying to put that in a very few words isn't always the easiest thing to do. But I think we've done a fairly good job on our mission statement and, provide exceptional law enforcement services that reduce crime and enhance public safety while preserving public trust. And I think that's a pretty good statement on what we are trying to do every day. And it gives the employees of this is what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, and when I've taught, onboarding classes, or if we're making public presentations about this, we talk about, breaking it up kind of into sections, but we're providing those exceptional law enforcement services because we do more than just a police department. I mean, our law enforcement services, Sheriff, you talk about it in your LSO 101 presentation. That's all the way back on episode 1. People go back or episode 0, actually.
Yeah.
People go and listen to that. Our law enforcement services go into things like, court security. They go into handgun purchase permits, sex offender registries, civil paper service. So we wanted to have, something in our mission statement that covered all those bases and was beyond just, stopping cars and responding to calls for service on the street. But then it's got those 3 pillars that really hold everything up. Again, looking back to Sir Robert Peel, we're trying to reduce crime, being one of them, enhance public safety, the second one. And then he does talk in his Peelian principles. We can't do any of that without that public trust. Right. It's that third leg of the stool that we have to have if any of the other ones are going to work. And that's a big part of the reason why we're why we're doing this show right now.
Yeah, the big thing is, we want Lancaster to be a great place to work, play, and raise a family. And that kind of hits all those of, if the public doesn't feel safe, that's not going to occur.
Yeah. We'll move into our values a little bit. And I remember specifically, a lot of businesses you'll go to, you see these things hanging on the wall. Sometimes people don't know, what they mean. We wanted ours to have a little bit more action and direction to them, and
more relevance.
Yeah, and I remember, we had a command staff retreat one time, and we were talking about, we thought we had it nailed down, and then we kind of wanted to just tailor it down a little bit more so that people could really remember it and have something meaningful. So we stuck with the values, and they're here in the strategic plan. They're in our SOP manual. We've got them on steps.
Yeah.
People have to read them when they walk upstairs. Have you memorized them yet, Kelsey?
No.
Okay. Working on it though.
I am.
Yeah. But we want to just have it ingrained in what we do. And Sheriff, you hit on the first one already, but it's treat everyone with fairness, dignity, and respect. Act with integrity and professionalism. Know your job and do it well. Enjoy what you do and work hard. And Kelsey, I remember when you started, when a lot of our people start, if you want a roadmap for how to be successful at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, those are the things we tell people to do. And that's hopefully something that we can all buy into as far as the culture around here. And sometimes it's hard to pin down a culture, Sheriff, or, you talk about a good work environment. What does that mean? And I think this was our best way to maybe encapsulate that into,
and you could substitute other words for some of those values, like treat everybody like you treat your mother or your sister or your brother,
Yep.
And hopefully that's with fairness, dignity, and respect. But just keep that in mind as you're dealing with people, and make sure that, I hope if my mother gets stopped by a law enforcement officer, that they would treat her as I would treat her.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I remember lineups that you would come into when I was a young deputy once upon a time that, you would kind of give those talks about, we don't have the luxury of having, just 10 more officers that are blocks away. We have to treat people with respect, because there's a lot of times we might be 20, 30, 45 minutes away from somebody that's going to help us. People are willing to accept a lot of law enforcement action if they feel they're being treated fairly.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, let's move on a little bit to our, we have a community overview in here, Sheriff, to just talk about some of the demographics of Lancaster County. We're up over 300,000 in population now. We've the capital cities here, second largest, county in as far as population goes in the state of Nebraska. Major university, colleges, interstate, just a lot of things that make Lincoln a great place to live and work for a citizen, but a lot of great things that are there for somebody that wants to be in law enforcement too.
7 state recreation areas, so it provides. All those things provide for a real variety of work experiences for our deputies.
Yeah, certainly. How about the culture initiative, Ben? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. The one thing about you have to be able to do with your law enforcement, you have to know what your demographics are and who you are dealing with on that. And so that's one of the big reasons of why we have this portion of it in, just so that everybody who looks at this kind of knows the population of Lancaster County. And as a law enforcement, you need to know that part of it. And I think a lot of it is changing as Lincoln is growing and getting bigger. Mm-hmm. And so you need to know that as an agency, so that when you're looking at your department, are you getting people in there that understand that and have compassion for everybody? Because not everybody is the same.
Yeah, all different walks of life.
Yes.
Different backgrounds, different places from around the world. And, all have decided for whatever reason to make Lincoln home. And we're glad that they did. And our job is to take care of them, keep them safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
When they call it, it does not matter. We are here to help and protect and take care of their needs.
One of the charts you're looking at on here, Sheriff, is the unemployment. And that's a good news, bad news scenario for us, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
The unemployment is extremely low in Lancaster County, and we're blessed to have a lot of work opportunities for people here. But sometimes when we have low unemployment, we have low numbers that are testing to be deputies, and that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I think you're seeing it when you go out to dinner someplace. Sometimes the restaurant will apologize because they're short of servers or short of, and so it's throughout the workforce in Lancaster County. But I think it's certainly been an acute problem for us.
Yeah, well, it's a great time to mention, if anybody is interested, we need people from all walks of life and from that workforce. And if you're interested in career opportunities at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, you can find out more by going to www.joinlso.com, and we'd love to put you in touch with somebody who can talk to you more about what your future might look like here. Let's talk a little bit about what the organization looks like then. And Kelsey, this is something you've been getting to learn. You've been taking a lot of tours since you've been here.
Yes.
Various divisions and things.
All of them are important. And, one of the biggest, the patrol division, I think, is the one that most people think about when they think of law enforcement and doing that. But, there's a lot of people behind the scenes, especially in our records division and doing those things that we certainly could not do our jobs, and we would fail as an agency if they weren't here doing their job and doing it well.
Yeah. So you mentioned them, the patrol division. People are very familiar with that. Our criminal investigations division, and a lot of opportunities and resources available to that division for good reason. Court services, taking care of the courthouse and prisoner transports.
There's one of those where you're talking about you don't know what you don't know on, they do a job, they transport a lot of prisoners and do that, and you don't know what helps prevent escape, and they're working very hard on doing that, and nothing happens means they're doing their job. But that's really hard to put, a stat on.
Yeah, it's hard to quantify.
Yeah. Our support services division covers records, covers civil, and then another one that you've gotten very familiar with because you're kind of covering that division right now. My old division, professional standards.
Yes.
And so that's the newest division to the sheriff's office, sheriff, and it's we've done some combinations and things over the years, and we're always trying to be as efficient as we can with our organizational.
It's kind of a catch-all.
Well, a little bit. I mean, some people might refer to it as management services, professional standards. But yes, it definitely does cover a lot of areas. But the main driver I think behind it is implied by the title. But we want to make sure that we're kind of not only holding ourselves to a standard, but also training ourselves to a standard.
Yes.
Hiring to a standard.
Hiring to a standard. Providing resources so people are able to maintain the standards that we expect from our people and from our office to fulfill our mission. So with that, we always take a look in the mirror when we're doing our strategic planning. And speaking of standards, we look at it's called a SWOT analysis, but SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And Ben, this is one of those exercises that we did in that group. Originally when we started our strategic plan, we took a look at it again in 2022. You want to talk a little bit about a few of those examples?
Well, yeah, this is the big one. This is one of the homework assignments that we gave everybody to go out and look and come back with some of these ideas on that. And, the strength is our internal portion of it. And I think we do really, really well on that part of it. And, the professional staff, I'll put our people up against anybody. Mm-hmm. And I think that is extremely important. I think it says why we have, and another thing is great teamwork. And, they kind of just build upon each other on all these.
Yeah.
And, the lower turnover rate, a lot of times, either they retire from here or honestly, they get a better job maybe in the federal thing. So
we've had a number of deputies who have gotten federal law enforcement jobs that have gone on, and sorry to see them go, but it really is a self-improvement for them. So
and we're also catching a little bit of the backside of that hiring boom from the 90s. And we've had a lot of people. There was a push for hiring cops in the 90s. Now we're getting to the point where
there was a push in the 70s too.
Was there a push in the 70s too?
Yeah.
Okay. What happened to those people?
A lot of them are dead. But
Well, you got hired in the 70s.
oh, that's right. I
Oh,
did. Yeah,
there.
yeah.
See?
Yeah.
So there's, I guess it just kind of comes in cycles
It does.
over the years.
It's generational. Yeah.
So we have, you'll have a push for cops. Those cops eventually age out, retire, and then you got to fill them back. So we're kind of a little bit at one of those cycles again, where we are doing a lot of hiring, but most of the turnover hasn't been for bad reasons.
Yep.
But people that are either retiring, going on, like you said, to other places. How about some of the weaknesses? Sometimes it's hard to call those out, Ben.
Well, it is, but if you can't take a good hard look at yourself, no agency in the whole nation is going to be great at everything they do, and they have some problems. And one of the problems, was our radio coverage in certain areas, and we have been working on that for a while. And I'm happy to report, and we will go into some of this, that we may be having a solution to that here in the very near future.
Yep.
With smart tech, which wasn't available when we were doing this. So we've always known it was a problem. We just did not have the technology to resolve it. And I'm glad to hear that, because being able to communicate is one of the biggest safety concerns we have for our deputies. And I've been very concerned about that, and I'm glad we're getting close. Now it's just money.
Certainly. We can talk about opportunities and threats a little bit. I know one of the big opportunities that we have is certainly a supportive community. We've been blessed with, we try to make good use of the taxpayer resources that we have, Sheriff, but we've also been blessed to have forfeited assets that we're able to supplement some training and equipment and things like that taxpayers really see a benefit from directly.
Right, absolutely.
That they may not always see in other communities. So that's a big credit to our folks, to our criminal interdiction team. I'm not going to thank the drug dealers other than to say that I'd rather be using their money for public safety than to further their criminal enterprises.
That's
so
right.
Amen to that.
Certainly an opportunity for us. But, threats, one of the ones that we had here on the list, when we started this in 2019, I don't think we ever thought a public health emergency would be a threat to us. We found out in a hurry in 2020, and that was a pretty easy one to realize on the list that we needed to do a better job with, some continuity of operations plans and things like that as far as external threats. That was one of several that we realized we might need some sort of continuity of operations plan and be better, maybe just a little bit more nimble and able to react for major incidents and things. So I know that's been a push for us too on some of those threats. But I think the main drive is that we use this SWOT analysis to really drive some of our goals and objectives, and we'll talk about those next.
Yeah, as you look at some of those, and one of the things I really want to talk about of external too is, when something happens bad or law enforcement does something incorrect anywhere in the United States, it affects everybody, and you have no control over that. But, with social media and just how quick that information goes out, and, we had in 2020 some civil unrest, and I think we were all shocked on that occurring here and how it went. We certainly learned a lot, and then I would be the first to admit we probably weren't as prepared as what we could have been at that point. We just did not see it coming, and that was kind of our blind spot.
Well, prior to that, I think we'd talked, the civil unrest we were worried about was maybe a pipeline protest. Maybe some sort of Nebraska's a kind of a hub for a lot of these energy projects and pipelines and things, and that was really the concern.
Yeah, another big thing is a lot of those times when law enforcement shows up, the individuals are protesting something else. In 2020, they were protesting us, and I think that changed the game a little bit too.
Yeah, no, and we're looking forward to bringing an episode soon about LSO's involvement in the protests and riots that happened in 2020. And Kelsey, that's one of the projects on our list coming up. So I'm
excited.
We'll get that. It's in pre-production right now, so we'll have it hopefully at some point this year, and people have that.
But I think you can see a number of areas in weaknesses. Lack of a stronger social media presence. That's one reason that prompted Kelsey's position. Negative public perception of local law enforcement. Another goal of ours is to, promote our brand.
Yep.
And inaccurate media portrayal of law enforcement. Again, that falls on Kelsey's plate. So there's a lot up here in our strategic plan that we hope will be addressed with the PIO position.
Well,
No pressure.
yeah.
Thanks.
I don't know if Ben like slid that across the table, when he offered you the job. Maybe we should have done that, but
And I didn't want to scare her away.
okay. All right. Well, it's
late for that.
Yeah, it's a big job, so we're glad that you're here to help us out with it. So. Hey, I'm Captain John Vick with the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. When it comes to your future, don't settle for good enough. Don't settle for ordinary. We won't either. Start your future today at joinlso.com. Let's talk a little bit about the looking back from that kind of 22, 23 time frame up to the present. What were some of our goals, Ben? You want to walk us through, just our measuring sticks on where we were at on those?
Well, the first one is prevent, reduce, and solve crime while enhancing public safety. And we had, 4 different categories of what we are looking at on those. And the first one is develop and implement effective enforcement strategies. And the action items, one of the things there is we knew our canine was going to be getting older. And, there was people talking about wanting to have maybe 2. Dodge has retired. He retired December 31st of this year. And so we knew that. And we have working on, in April, getting a new canine, going to training. And Chase Palmer will be the new canine handler. So those are the kind of things that we're looking at and wanting to address and work as an example of that. So
yeah, certainly. We're also trying to get empowering patrol officers and deputies to identify and develop solutions to neighborhood specific issues.
Yeah, and a lot of times, it works with our school resource officers. I'd say a lot of that deals with our people in Waverly and Hickman. Mm-hmm. One of the harder things we have come to find out, we have so many square miles to work, and the population isn't so as dense as what it is in Lincoln. So that kind of makes it a little bit more of a challenge. But I think one of the examples, too, is if there is a crime that's occurring in these areas, we've had a rash of some mailbox vandalisms and doing that. So there's another example of, deputies starting to look at that and go, okay, let's put some effort into this and figure out who is doing that. Yeah,
and I know we've been working with, like you mentioned, the SROs, the school districts specifically. The South 68th Street corridor has been a safety concern, for some time with the North School District.
Yes.
And that's something we've been working with the district on to try and see what improvements we can make and if there's anything we can do differently to help people get to and from school safely. How about measuring the crime trends that affect public safety? Just having that visibility to be able to respond and direct resources.
Well, one of the things I think we try to push for is, we kind of live in a world of what police officers do and what troopers do. We do take calls for service, but we're also out there running the traffic and just making sure our people are out there being proactive. Now, that doesn't mean they're writing tickets all the time, but it's out there getting the public and making sure that they are staying busy and people are making people safe.
Yeah. We've done some work. Our crime analysis unit has done some work on getting a dashboard together. We've rolled that out to some of our communities. So they've been able to see a call summary for a long time, but this is going to allow them to see kind of a more visible visualization on a map of where crime trends are happening. So those are things we want to just keep working on as we keep going. Effective investigation initiatives. Sheriff, we had Jason Mayo was on here talking about license plate reader technology.
Yep.
That's something that we've got on mobile vehicles. We're working to kind of deploy that a little bit further. I think we're just at the point in time where that kind of becomes a public expectation that this this technology is out there. It helps make communities safer. I don't want Lincoln and Lancaster County to become, underserved, because there's some vulnerable populations out there that we have the ability to be able to protect them and solve crimes that they're reporting if we leverage technology.
Yeah, with the license plate readers, it seems like a new thing because it just hasn't been around here much, but it's been in the East Coast and West Coast for years and years and years, and it is not very, it's not new. And the proof's in the pudding on some of these things of how they do help solve some crimes.
Yeah.
The Boston bomber, one of the biggest reasons they were able to catch up to them so quick was because of that technology.
Mm-hmm. How about establishing public safety initiatives?
So we want to reduce serious injury and fatal crashes.
Yep.
And then, how do you go about doing that? Traffic safety and sobriety checkpoints, saturation projects, which we are involved in now, public education and awareness programs, social media. Again, Kelsey,
Yep.
something for you to do in your spare time, and continue to provide that training for deputies in the field of crisis intervention. So I think, some of those are very difficult just to put your thumb on, but we'll make, we had a huge spike in fatal crashes last year over the year before. And so, we need to try to figure out, is there anything that we could have done to help reduce the number of fatal crashes that we had last year? So we'll look at all that stuff, and it's an ongoing thing.
And that's something we're trying to just empower deputies with the information that they can see where are these crashes happening, so they can then deploy, to areas that are more likely to have injury crashes happen.
And the one thing I'm looking back at some of those, and this is kind of going into the public information part. If people were wearing their seatbelts, we may have not had that, and that's something you can control because. You don't always know. You can't always be everywhere to slow people down and do that, but you certainly can get the information out that, hey, putting this on, we probably wouldn't have had as many fatalities if people wouldn't have been wearing their seatbelt.
Yeah, and every time a bill comes up in the legislature to make seatbelt usage mandatory and to make it a primary violation as opposed to a secondary violation, I've gone and testified in support of those bills. We've seen firsthand that seatbelts save lives. And, we just saw this last weekend when the streets were a little icy. A man was thrown out of a vehicle that went into the ditch and rolled, and had he been belted in, he wouldn't have been thrown out. And then a half an hour later, a woman and 2 children are involved in a single vehicle rollover crash. They were all belted in properly, and minor injuries.
Yeah, walked away.
So... Yeah, there's just no question that if people wear the seatbelts, it'll cut down on the number of fatalities. So we need to work on that.
Kelsey, you probably about have it memorized by now. You were just putting posts out yesterday with the snow coming.
Buckle up.
Yep.
Slow down.
Buckle up.
Increase your following distance.
Yep. See?
Use caution.
She's got them down.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's all part of it is just, beating that drum and getting that message out there so that we're catching people and they remember, because people get busy and sometimes they just forget.
And being late's better than being dead.
100%.
So.
And a lot of times people have to hear those things 6, 7, 8 times before it finally does register into them.
I think it's also, from my perspective, is figuring out what our audience and our community, what's going to be most effective. I mean, it's a reel on our socials, the ATV.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how old that is, and I'm still getting notifications. There's just certain things that are very catching to really ingrain in people's minds.
Yeah, and that's one that it's going to be coming up again in the summer, especially when people are out, whether they're in their neighborhoods or on their farms or acreages with those UTVs. You can't give enough safety reminders, especially that particular video. Thank God they were crash test dummies that were thrown out of that one, but that was from some training that our crash team did.
Yeah,
and it was a child dummy that gets tossed out of the back of that. So check out our Instagram at LSO Nebraska. You can see that reel that Kelsey's talking about. Let's move on to, I think next is our developing our workforce. Okay, so Ben, one of our objectives was enhancing our selection process, and I think if you were to set our our process today up against our process from 3 years ago, they wouldn't even look the same.
No, not at all.
Just because there have been that many changes.
We started testing. We're testing every month now, which we never have done. We used to do it maybe once or twice a year, and now we're doing it all the time. And, we've gotten some outside agencies or businesses to come help us and try to figure out what demographic, where can we push our message to that will give us the individuals who who are looking at possibly wanting to come into law enforcement and trying to get our message to them. And I think that's extremely important.
Sheriff, health and wellness has been a big push across law enforcement, and we're no exception here. We rolled out the Cortico Wellness app in the last year. We've done a lot of work on our critical incident stress debriefings, on trying to get people connected with resources. Not to say that everybody needs to talk to somebody after every call, but there are certainly some calls that stick with people.
Yep, absolutely,
and can make a difference. We've been trying to connect people.
What people need to know, just from a public's perspective, is we see things that most people don't and shouldn't, and some of that stuff sticks with you, especially the traumatic incidents that happen to people. When we are dealing with those, they happen to us as well.
Yeah, and those critical incidents, that's anything from a shooting to a bad car crash with traumatic injuries, maybe a really severe child abuse type of case, or death cases, which we deal with a lot. And I heard a stat, once upon a time, I think the average American might encounter, 2 to 3 critical incidents in their entire life. But a law enforcement officer over a 20-year career can be upwards of 800. And so we can't expect, those types of numbers to not leave a mark of some sort.
Well, yeah, sometimes it's not just that one event that does it. It's
cumulative.
Yes, over and over and over. And then all of a sudden there is one. And yeah, I think as a profession, we are getting a lot better at doing that. I'm sure through your career, you have seen it changed a lot, because even in mine, starting in the early 90s, that it was buckle up and be tough. Don't talk about it.
Right.
Yep.
Well, certainly still work to do. Enhancing employee competency and capabilities in their positions. So we talk a lot about lateral movement and promotion. You go from deputy to sergeant to captain, et cetera. But I think we want our people to grow laterally too, and grow kind of in the knowledge of whatever particular position they're in.
Of course. We are, again, kind of lucky. We have some funds that we can do a lot of training. And I would be very surprised to find that any other agency allowing their employees as much training as we do. And I think we're really lucky on that part of it. And, and even with our professional staff, we got to make sure that we keep them getting the training they need and being part of, the continuous learning part that's so important to make your job, to continue to improve.
Retention has always been something that's been important to talk about, but I don't know that it's ever been. I'll just mention him specifically. I mean, John Osterhaus is going to be retiring here soon. A lot of people know Deputy John Osterhaus. He was planning on retiring a year ago, and we were looking at some major changes. I mean, even talking about going to 12-hour shifts last summer, and I think one of the only ways we were able to avert that. And thank you, John. Was John decided to delay his retirement and hang out another year. So I think retention has definitely come into focus as something that's super important. We focus a lot on recruiting for obvious reasons, but retention I think is just as important. It's easy to forget. Yeah,
in the legislation we just had that's free tuition for dependents of fire and law enforcement. And I know several deputies who are staying around who are eligible to retire that aren't, because they have their kids are going into college, and that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, certainly.
And the state has also helped out a little bit on some funding on that too, to keep people in the profession a little bit longer.
I'm going to jump ahead here to achieving organizational excellence and providing superior service. Certainly, good service is something that it's in our mission statement, providing exceptional law enforcement services, but it's always something that's been important to us at the Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, we achieved our Nebraska accreditation in 2022. That was a new process for the state to accredit agencies across the state of Nebraska. But we really haven't stopped there. I mean, there's other things that we're working on beyond just the minimum required for state accreditation. Incident command trainings. Working out our internal communications. Trying to smooth out. Really make sure that the engine is working, at maximum capacity.
Yeah, and some of it too is getting out and doing things with the public. And one of the things I know, John, you've helped us because one of our parts was for the sheriff and I to go out and be more meet with the towns and villages on their boards and things like that. And I think with the mapping, you've gone out several different times in doing that. And the one good thing I think we have going for us is our deputies that work those towns do such a great job.
They do.
And, they're at those meetings all the time. So I do feel like we have our presence there and listening to those communities and what they need.
Well, one of the other ones, Sheriff, our staffing, has been, as far as patrol goes, back to the patrol division, our staffing has been fairly stable. With the number of deputies, the number of sergeants, but we were able to, over the years, 6 and 6 initiative, able to add a deputy to each of those shifts. Now, not every shift is full, but we have a labor management meeting this afternoon to talk about shift bids, and I think for the first time in a long time that I can remember, we've got at least a position that's able to be filled in each of those shifts.
What people don't remember all the time is that, when you have a 24-hour operation, to increase your each shift by one person takes 5.7 full-time equivalents. So 6 people in essence to create an additional body on each of the shifts, the 3 shifts. So that was the plan about 6 years ago, that we are 6 and 6, increase our workforce by 1 deputy every year for 6 years to accomplish that increase in staffing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there have been times when we simply couldn't take advantage. The county board has been very, very good about allowing us to fulfill that 6 and 6 initiative. There have been times when we just couldn't hire enough people with some of the turnover, and then to hire an additional person to fill that 6 and 6 position. It didn't happen in that year. So it's been a few more years than we would have liked, but it's finally come to fruition.
Well, like you said, applications are open monthly now. JoinLSO.com if you're interested in being a deputy, and we'll have more of those spots to fill in the coming months. Let's move on to, and Kelsey, this is right in your wheelhouse, but building and maintaining public trust. That's, you almost have an entire goal on the strategic plan that falls underneath your, and you're not doing it alone. We've got, communications team, but really, everybody here at the sheriff's office is trying to do their part to row the boat in that direction of maintaining public trust. Coming from your background, where is that something that's still talked about, across industries, when people are talking about marketing and journalism and things like that?
I think it varies depending on wherever you are. There are different needs. I think what's very important in establishing a goal related to public information is figuring out the community that you're serving. Obviously, public safety is going to be front and center of maintaining and building public trust with public information. So figuring out what the office can do, what our deputies can do while we're out, to reach everyone that they need to for whatever it is that we are trying to push out. So, for example, I've been working with a lot of deputies about the severe weather going on. I'm not out on the road. The deputies are. So it's getting them to, if you guys encounter anything, any severe weather, any photos, videos that we can use to alert the public in whatever area they're in, if they're going out, people are going out and traveling, that I can push that out. So I'm just trying to grow that area. And you got a lot of feedback from that. All right, so that's good. Yeah. And there was only one, I think only one deputy, and I worried that this might happen, but she sent the email out yesterday when it wasn't snowing. So, of course, she already had one deputy send a picture of a completely clear road with no snow. So his drive home, he said, "This is an excellent use of public safety. Thank you." Yeah. So, no, that's, back to that Robert Peel, the Peelian principles.
public trust is huge. I mean, it's one of the pillars that we have to lean on to make sure that all the other stuff is working. Your position in that creation was a big part of it. Doing everything that we can to modernize our not only just for recruiting, but our brand, and making sure that we can be a trusted source of news in the community. We've done a lot with Facebook Lives, Ben.
Yes, we have.
And that's been just a benefit of technology.
And this show.
Yeah, and this show right here. So
we go to Halloween events. I mean, out at the event center, and I bet there was thousands of people that had gone through that. And, we get involved in parades and trunk and treats, and all those kind of things. I think as we get out and be part of those, it gets to let people see us other than just this enforcement part.
As a human.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to remember too, at things, whether it's events for youth or any different community event, you might be an individual's first interaction with law enforcement. So to make that experience if it's outside of on patrol, because a lot of people meet law enforcement on a very, very bad day. So I think it's to counterbalance that with a lot of community events being out in the public, I think is really important.
Yeah. I am sure that especially with young people, sometimes we come in and we have to take mom or dad away, and I can't imagine how tragic that is in their minds, and being able to meet them again and be a positive portion of it, that we're not in their eyes the bad guy because we took mom and dad, and it's important. Yeah,
and we rely on them to be their best on every call.
Yes.
And it's hard to do, but that's the charge. That's what we signed up for. Sheriff, this last one I know is near and dear to your heart, but establishing and maintaining safe, modern infrastructure, and that's looked very different over your tenure as sheriff here.
Oh gosh, yes. We talked about it earlier about the radio coverage. There's some areas in the county that we've just perpetually had, poor radio coverage, and so Ben's been working really hard on trying to come up with a solution, and I think we might be real close to one, which is great news. There's just our infrastructure is just crucial to everybody doing their jobs. Our computer backbone.
Yep.
The deputies all have computers in their cars, and so we have to maintain a very robust IT positions.
Yep.
And make sure that we can support the deputies on the road doing their jobs with what is happening behind the scenes here at the office.
Well, and we've increased a little bit our footprint for office space. Over the years, it's grown slowly as we've added positions. I think the thing that's different about the sheriff's office compared to a lot of other county departments and agencies is that for an agency our size, 100+ people, we probably only have office space for about a third of them.
Because our patrol cars are our offices.
So that's, we consider that office space when we're looking at modernizing vehicles and expanding things. So our fleet is a big part of that infrastructure that we grow and maintain too.
Yeah, and I tell you, from the day I started and we've talked about that, to now, what they have in those cars, the body cameras and the in-car cameras and the MDTs, and it's just amazing what they have. Their cell phones on what that's a small computer now in this day and age, and being able to provide those things to them. And I would say, Sheriff, our uniform has changed a lot from the day you started to now.
It has, yeah. I mean, we used to, our uniforms are mandated by state statute. Chocolate brown shirt with a pink tan pant, but the gun belts that we wear really cause some back problems for people, and so we've experimented over the years with a number of different solutions. One being like little suspenders, that could take the weight off the hips and put them on the shoulders. Didn't work quite so well, but the load-bearing vest that we have gone to, and it's probably been 10 years ago since we started in that areas, taking that weight off the hips and putting it on load-bearing vest so that the upper body is carrying that load, and it's much easier on the backs of our employees, and we don't have near as many injured backs and claims, that sort of thing.
Well, and what do you do when, we can have the uniform we want to have, but what do you do when the uniform manufacturers say, well, chocolate brown isn't really in our business model, or
pink tan
pants. Yeah. We're only going to do that uniform run once a year. So if you need 34 long, sorry, you're out of luck.
Exactly.
And so those are real challenges that our personnel and training unit deals with.
And as a group, the Nebraska Sheriff's Association has, we are not in the business to violate state law.
No.
And so when there's a state law that says we'll wear pink tan pants, we take that pretty seriously.
Yep.
And it's difficult for people to go against what the state law says.
Yeah, certainly.
If you can't get it, you can't get it.
Yeah, or if you can get it, when you're comparing prices of like, well, gosh, I'm paying this, I could stretch my budget a lot further if I could do that.
Yeah.
So, just strange things that you have to deal with.
Well, that and the amount of equipment these men and women now on patrol are having to carry is a lot different too. And I don't even know if some of them would have enough space around their belt to put everything that they need.
Yeah.
Coming from a civilian, I think I would be so surprised at how heavy everything that they wear is every day. I mean, if I go on a ride along, I just wear my vest, and sometimes that feels like a lot to me. So I think that's maybe something that people don't realize is
and
all the stuff they have.
And we do offer a ride-along program for people who are interested in learning about law enforcement, if they're interested in maybe thinking about this as a career. And so it's definitely a way to, like you said, Kelsey, get
I found them very
a little
interesting.
exposure to that, and the equipment, what's done, and just all the ins and outs. So before we wrap up, Ben, I know you wanted to recognize the members of the committee that helped put this together. And certainly couldn't do it. Certainly couldn't do it without those folks. And I know you'll be asking for some volunteers coming up here in the future. But to those folks that were on the strategic planning committee for this last go around, we're certainly grateful for their help on this, and couldn't have done it without them.
And yes, and there's a lot of them on the list. I won't go through everybody on that, but. The big thing is, the different levels. The sheriff and I were on it. We had some command staff, we had some sergeants, and then the deputies, and then again the professional staff, and then some outside. And I think that is important to do. And
that was something new that we added this last time, was having that outside perspective.
Yeah, and I think you need to do that just because when it's all just your agency, a lot of times people all think the same, and I think it's good to have somebody from the outside and look at it and then go, hey, why are you doing that? And put some questions, or have you ever thought about that? And that's the reason why we had an outside law enforcement individual in there, but then having a civilian in there to look at it and say, well, why? Here's how we think, and a better way of getting that information out.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to getting some updates for kind of the next rendition, next generation of our strategic plan. That'll be coming out here, and probably at some point this year we'll get the band back together and take a look and see where we're headed over the next few years. Yeah,
and it's funny as we go through those, and we didn't hit every one of them, but again, some we certainly accomplished a lot. Some we're working on, and probably always will be working on, and some of them I think we've looked at and said, you know what, I think we need to readjust and change, and there's some other areas that are more important for us to work on.
Yeah. Any other closing thoughts?
No, it's just one of those things. It's good to dust this off, look at it, see where we're at. What have we accomplished?
That is all the time we have for today's episode of the 902 podcast. We appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you enjoy listening to podcasts. You can also reach out to us on social media at LSO Nebraska on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. To learn more about career opportunities at the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office, be sure to visit us at joinlso.com. You can also reach out to us via email at lso@lancaster.ne.gov. We hope to catch you on a future episode of the 902 podcast. Thanks for listening.